Hi there everyone. I wanted to share my experience building this backyard pond in case it might help anyone who's thinking of doing something similar. It's about 4.5 meters long and about 2.5 meters wide, with an average depth of around 350 mil, which makes it roughly 3,000 litres of water in total. I'm not an expert by any means, just someone who learned a little bit along the way, and I wanted to share my experiences. I started with the basics, working out the size and volume. That tells you what sort of pump and liner you'll need. You absolutely have to have a pond liner and the underlay, otherwise the water just disappears. One tip, ponds always look big when you first dig them, but once the rocks and plants go in, they shrink before your eyes. I used an aquascape system with a skimmer and biofalls. So the head height is around 900 millimeters from the pump to the top of the falls, and the base and based on the pump specs, I'm getting around 5,000 to 7,000 litres per hour at that height. So that means there's water's being turned over more than twice an hour. So that's good. If you want a clear pond, filtering is crucial. Between the skimmer, biofalls and all the rocks, which carry beneficial bacteria, there's a lot of natural filtering happening. There are a lot of rocks in this pond. There are the obvious big rocks to hold it all in place, but there's also a lot of pebbles, medium rocks and gravel in there as well. It all disappears to cover the liner and provide a home for the bacteria. This gives the bacteria a lot of surface area to do their magic. I could have gone with a smaller skimmer and falls, but I'm glad I didn't. The bigger skimmer barely needs cleaning. One mistake I made was using too many fertilized plants. That caused a string algae outbreak. Plants are great for oxygenation and keeping algae at bay, but too much fertilizer in the soil and any other organic material breaking down the pond can actually make the algae worse. So originally I wanted to have a big drop waterfall, but you need big framing stones, and those can be really heavy, unwieldy and hard to get into position. Then I thought, well, it would be nice to have some sort of stream cascading down a rocky path. So I made a cascade and tweaked it a couple of times just to get the right shape and look. So it has two drop points to give it the sound of water running. One is at the biofalls, where the water flows out like it's coming from a cave, and one where the river drops into the pond. The rocks at the bottom of the cascade have been repositioned a couple of times just to get the right sound and splash. In the end, I just let it settle in and it now looks quite natural. A few tips I've picked up along the way. 1. You always have to put a tier in your walls for every 300 to 400 mil of depth you have. So the width of each tier will just depend on how stable your soil is. Sandy soil like mine needs wider tiers to avoid collapse. 2. Make sure you include a fish hide. Lilies are great for this, but you can also make a cave of sorts out of rocks or a pipe or both. 3. Don't overplant with fertilizer. That stuff's a killer. 4. I've positioned solar lights outside the pond, shining in for ambience at night. This works very well actually. Plus, they can be positioned if they're not right. If your pond isn't deep or crystal clear, there's probably no need for expensive underwater lights unless you're going to go for the full koi pond. 5. Herons are clever. They know how to hunt. It took one almost 3 years to find my pond, but once he did, he didn't leave until most of my fish were gone. There's not a lot you can do about herons apparently. You can try a water sprayer that's triggered by movement. Some say you can put a plastic heron up to scare them off, as they think some other heron has claimed the territory. In the end, I just added some chicken wire deep down for the fish to hide under, but it's going to be an ongoing battle. Let's talk about costs. Here's a breakdown of the main components I bought from Aquascape Australia. This doesn't include rocks or labour. Those costs add up as well. Believe it or not, there's a massive number of small, medium and large rocks in the pond, and it's almost impossible to have too many rocks because they all just disappear in amongst the bigger rocks. As you can see, the pond liner is one of the big costs, but you can't do without it. Plus, you'll have ongoing expense like water conditioners and algae treatments. And if you add fish and plants, that adds up too. But overall, they're not big expenses. I also used expanding foam that's pond safe to lock some big rocks in place, especially around the waterfall, and some of the smaller rocks as well, I might add. And you can use a gravel over the top of that foam to hide it. So that stuff was really useful. I took inspiration from Kev at OzPonds. He has his own website and YouTube channel. It's definitely worth checking out his YouTube channel to see how he goes about things. I found his take on bog filters and natural setups especially interesting. If you're thinking about building a pond, I'd say go for it. You'll save a lot of money doing it yourself. You just have to know the pitfalls. Start with a plan, stay flexible, and accept that you'll be tweaking things for a little while. But when the frogs show up, when you see the dragonflies in summer, and you watch the birds splashing in it when no one's around, you'll think, why didn't I do this before? There's nothing like the sound of running water, watching the fish and the reedy plants, even the rain on the water. It all adds to the tranquility of your own backyard. It has definitely been worth it for me. Thanks for watching, and feel free to drop any questions or comments below if you're training a pond of your own. Bye for now.